Hey class, this is Mr. Clark, and these are the video lecture notes for History 20, Chapter 3.2, India's Classical and Medieval Periods. Next slide. Chandragupta Maurya overthrew the last Magadhan dynasty in 321 BCE and established the Mauryan Empire, which lasted from 321 to 184 BCE. Next slide. He and his successors built the first Indian state that included most of the subcontinent. Here's a map of that Mauryan Empire. Next slide. Chandragupta's grandson, King Ashoka, who reigned from 268 to 232 BCE, is famed for having tried to rule this large realm according to Buddhist principles. Next slide. For 5 centuries after the fall of the Mauryan Empire, no one major power ruled India. The entire subcontinent saw instead a fairly rapid turnover of regional monarchies. Next slide. Yet, in spite of the political instability, India was economically dynamic, as trade within and without the subcontinent flourished. Next slide. India was increasingly linked to other parts of the world in such networks of exchange as the Silk Road and the Indian maritime trade. And this map shows trade with India kind of in the center of the world. Next slide. New trends appeared in Buddhism and Hinduism, most notably a popular devotional form of worship. Next slide. The Gupta Empire, which lasted between 320 and 550 Christian era, included much of northern India and facets of the Gupta period society and culture suggest that Indian civilization had matured and entered a classical age. Next slide. Social institutions included the patriarchal family, Varna and caste, and commercial associations in towns and cities. Next slide. The methods by which kings establish relations with neighboring rulers and within their own lands has been described as Indian feudalism. Next slide. Some kings, like the Cholas, buttressed their power by claiming to rule according to Hindu notions of dharma, for example, building large Hindu temples and patronizing the Brahmins. Next slide. Finally, during these centuries, Islamic rule, communities, and religion entered the South Asian landscape, changing the course of India's history. Next slide. And that's it, for chapter 3.2.